and welcome to Africa Today. I am Esther Makwariola. In a world where data serves as the currency of accountability, corruption in Africa has grown to become an institution, ensuring that millions remain deprived, displaced, and disadvantaged at the expense of a selfish few in the society. From the popular Nkandla scandal to the no-confidence vote in Parliament, South Africa's Jacob Zuma continues to find himself in the eye of the storm amidst a fresh protest in the country calling for his resignation. And so we ask, what are your thoughts on the latest developments in South Africa as a coalition of trade unions protest the level of corruption in the country under Jacob Zuma's watch? You can join the conversation and share your thoughts with us on Twitter at TVC News NG. We'll take a report and Africa Today will continue. Welcome on board.
Thousands of protesters led by South Africa's largest trade union embarked on nationwide protest on Wednesday in response to corruption allegations plaguing President Jacob Zuma. The Congress of South Africa's trade union COSATU, an alliance of the ruling African National Congress, called on its more than 1 million members to strike and join marches in major cities, including the country's largest, Johannesburg. Although the protests are officially against corruption in general, much of the frustration and anger is aimed at Zuma. Senior members of the ANC have called for 75-year-old Zuma, who has been in power since 2009, to step down in recent months, following numerous allegations that his friends, the Gupta family, wield undue influence over the award of state contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The ANC will choose its next president in December, with Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa's camp prioritizing fighting corruption, boosting economic growth, and winning back the trust of supporters who have become disillusioned with the party under Zuma. Zuma's powerful faction is, however, expected to back his ex-wife and former African Union chairman, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, although other candidates could still emerge as serious contenders.
Welcome back. Going by the rate of discontent and demonstrations in the Rainbow Nation since 2004, South Africa is arguably dubbed as the protest capital of the world, where the level of social inequality and unemployment is said to be on the highest in Africa. Thousands of South Africans recently took to the streets in a rallying cry against a scandal-plagued President Jacob Zuma and his powerful allies 3 months before a new ANC leader is chosen at a national convention. Joining me in the studio on Africa Today, I have Jermaine Sonwolu, an African affairs analyst, and also I have on phone Professor Gianni Rosso, head of the School of Economics and Business Sciences, University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. Good to have you both on the program. So let me begin with you, Jermaine. Yes, South Africa, is embroiled with this series of protests owing to the fact that Jacob Zuma, he has been plagued with corruption scandals and all. Is this a test of popularity of Jacob Zuma, or are we seeing the last of the ANC's popularity in South Africa? What are your thoughts?
Well, Jacob Zuma has proven to be the South African wildcat that seems to have 9 lives, or should I say more than 9 lives. He survived 9 votes of no confidence in the parliament, and he's done everything wrong, but seems to still be in power. And what we are seeing right now is he may be a bit popular in the ANC, but more and more we are seeing, just from the last vote of no confidence taking place, some of his own MPs actually voted against him. So we can see whereby there's this popularity from him. You can see the Congress for the South African trade unions, COSTA, and also the South African Communist Party party coming together in an alliance to say, you know what, we want to stand against this man that has put our country to dispute and has a lot of corruption charges and cases filed against him. So the ANC is actually going down because someone once said, you know, that if they don't, one of the housing minister in South Africa and the presidential hopeful also said that if they do not discipline, that is, if the ANC does not discipline President Jacob Zuma for these continual actions that bring ANC into dispute, the ANC of President Nelson Mandela will be no more in South Africa. And
that is really a worrying thing, because the ANC is known to make South Africa, the way it is now. And with the history of Nelson Mandela, it's really going to be painful knowing that ANC might not really have a story to tell after it all.
Yes, it's quite unfortunate. In 1994, they took over, and they've been seen as a hope. They've been seen as a beacon, not only for South Africans, but also for Africa as a whole, after fighting and standing against apartheid and coming out strong. And they've been so good to actually lead South Africa over this period since 1994 till date. That should be like some 23 years. But what is going on right now is unexpected. It is totally like an implosion taking place in that party, and they need to resolve these issues as soon as possible. If not, the future of the ANC will be in question. The ANC recently had like a conference, I think that was in July or so, and they found out that a lot of problems are going on. They actually put out a report, did an investigation, and that's where they actually recommended that he must actually be penalized for these issues, because they are trying to save face. In December, there's going to be a Congress whereby they're going to choose the next leader. Again, President Jacob Zuma is at it doing his marvelous corruption antics. He wants to bring his wife, his ex-wife, the land Mini, to become the ANC leader. And in the ANC, people are saying that what has happened so far in South Africa, that each President Nelson Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, they've always put their successor to actually be in power. But now they've recommended and they've supported that, but he is now bringing someone from his own family. This is like a continuation of a dynasty. The Zuma dynasty is a new form of Mugabeism going on right
Well,
here.
let's see how things unfold in the coming weeks or so. But let's quickly turn to Professor Jani. Professor, with what Jermaine just pointed out, how much longer do you think the ANC can stand the test of time, knowing that its leader, Jacob Zuma, is really facing some tough time here?
Evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. President Jacob Zuma will stay president of South Africa until 2019. The problem, however, as has just been explained, is that he's totally corrupt and not fit to govern a modern economy. So the ANC will stay in power at least until the next general election in 2019. My impression is that it will be re-elected, but with a much reduced majority.
And if it does that happen, what would that mean for the party that has been, known to be the forefront of South African politics over time?
Well, the ANC has dominated the South African political scene. If the ANC is not re-elected with a majority, South Africa will have a government of national unity after 2019. That is what I hope for, because our country really needs what I call a government of national healing. And in such a government of national healing, all the political parties must be involved.
Talking of the government of national healing, what exactly do you mean by that?
I mean a government of national healing which must be representative of all the people in South Africa by representing all the political parties in the country. And it must be a government that focuses on repairing the damage done by the corruption of Mr. Zuma, his friends and his cronies, because our country has really suffered severely under the current corruption.
All right, let me hold your thoughts for now, Professor. We need to go on a very quick break. You're watching Africa Today, and we are looking at the latest developments in South Africa as a coalition of trade unions protest the level of corruption in the country under Jacob Zuma's watch.
Don't be left out. COSATU is now Play, and that's no play. Bigger and better with so much to satisfy your entertainment needs. Hurry and realign your COSATU dish to our new satellite position. Astra 2F, 28.2 degrees east, frequency 12565, symbol rate 30000, polarization horizontal. Enjoy unlimited entertainment like never before with our unlimited new channels. Call 012-778-690. Don't be left out. 012-778-690. Play.
Welcome back. The Congress of the South African Trade Unions and South African Communist Party, operating in an alliance with the ANC, recently led what is tagged Mother of All marches in major cities across South Africa. While the demonstrations were supposed to be against corruption and state capture and job losses, protesters also took the opportunity to vent their anger at Zuma, calling for his resignation. So, Jermaine, in the heat of the protest, it was also mentioned, corruption was part of it, the state capture was part of it, job loss part of it. But in all of this, corruption, stood out in Jacob Zuma's government. Why do we have this issue in Africa? Corruption. Should that be the only issue that we should talk about or we should deal with in every African country?
Well, it's quite unfortunate that this seems to be an African problem. People thought it was just a Nigerian problem, but it is far more reaching. It seems that once people get into places of power and influence, they always focus on what they can get for themselves rather than what they can give to people. Leadership is about selflessness. It's not about you amassing, but about what you can do for the masses. And that's what African leaders have to have a reorientation about. They just want to go in there and grab everything they can grab. This President Jacob Zuma went to go and renovate his own private residence for over $16 million, and that is unbelievable. And he did that with state money. Luckily, there was a ruling that said that he had to pay back the money, and he has now been doing like a repayment for that. But that is him benefiting from the state resources. And this is what we don't want to see in the country. And it is not only about that corruption case personally that is taking money to renovate his own place, but the written protest that they actually had in South Africa was also about what they call state capture. You understand? It's because they saw like his cronies, as the speaker said. He said that, the Gupta brothers, these are very powerful, influential businessmen who have been running things in South Africa for a long time, but they're now seeing whereby that they are now influencing things within the government. There was allegations that they were very, very influential in the appointment of, I think, 3 ministers within the cabinet of Jacob Zuma. So what they are saying right now is that the South African people actually went to court and said that they wanted the court to actually force President Jacob Zuma to do what? To actually have a commission, a public inquiry against influence peddling of these state capturers, these external forces who are trying to manipulate the South African government for their own benefit. In Nigeria, we will call them cabal, but we call them state capturers right now. And we see this kind of narrative playing around everywhere in Africa. The African leaders have to have a reorientation. They don't have to focus on themselves. They have to now turn the focus, turn the lens of their attention on the people and see how they can better the general populace.
All right, Professor Rusu, with what Jermaine just pointed out now, do you share the same opinion, especially as most African leaders in the continent is being termed as being corrupt?
It's difficult for me to judge all leaders in all countries in Africa. Indeed, there are some corrupt leaders. We are aware of some corrupt leaders. But it's very sad to me that South Africa is now becoming the leading example of corruption on the African continent. South Africa is a modern economy. We are the leading economy on the continent, but at the rate this corruption is now going, we will lose soon our role as leading economy on this continent because of this corruption. And really, South Africa should not be known as the corrupt capital of Africa, but this is now what's happening under President Zuma. So the country needs to get rid of him dearly because he's not fit to be the president of a modern economy, as I've said.
So
the
all right, go
corruption
ahead.
problem in Africa, of course, we are aware of, but unfortunately South Africa is becoming the leading example.
And if this continues, talking about, how things are running in South Africa, what do you foresee will be the likely implications?
Well, the likely implications now is that our government the fiscus is running out of money very fast. And we face very steep tax increases next year. Taxes in South Africa will have to go to a much higher level than is currently the case in order to make the budget balance. And South Africans will suffer more under the remaining 2 years of the Zuma leadership. We will also see this in higher inflation, and our exchange rate will continue weakening.
Quite an analysis there. But Jermaine, if I were to come to you with what he's just said, it might not be the best of time for the people in South Africa, with all that they're experiencing. How can they make things better for themselves? See that, it's not really palatable in the first place.
Yes, it's really sad in South Africa right now. They've been experiencing some sluggish growth in their economy over the past few years. And I believe they were in recession earlier this year, declared as that. 17 January, exactly. So with that that happening right now, with high rates of unemployment, high rates of crime, and this economic problems right now, they are really in a dire state. Leadership is key. They need to actually sort out the leadership problems. People are focusing, attention is being diverted onto President Jacob Zuma instead of fixing the economy, putting policies in place that will ensure equitable distribution of the funds of South Africa. We say South Africa is a first world country, so to say, in a third world continent. And we see them as a shining example, a light for other African nations when it comes to development and integration of other cultures into their system. But now what we are seeing right now is that it's slowly coming away from that. And they actually need to ensure that economic policies are revamped. Things need to be done to ensure that the governance is on top of the game, and also there can be prosperity for everyone in South Africa, not those on top, but those also at the bottom. And
talking about specifics here, what exactly are you looking at in terms of the economy? How can they, turn things around so that the people do not get to suffer even in the face of the difficulty right now in the country? Well, I believe jobs. Jobs is always a good place to start. You understand, there's been a big disparity when it comes to employment rates for people. You understand, the government has to actually embark on a lot of capital-intensive projects. There are a lot of slums in South Africa, as they are in other African nations too, that needs to be redeveloped, needs to be revamped, needs to be rejigged, so to say. And if they can start pumping money, employing people into the construction industry, to start ensuring that people start getting jobs, people can start seeing the benefits of that democratic principles come into play. They can put food on their tables. You understand? And this kind of thing will actually encourage the economy, to boost the economy, even boost production. And also they should just encourage also foreign direct investment, foreign investors to come into the country and also to do business there. Right now, we know the situation with Nigerians, some of them who do some illicit activities, or should I say some of us who do illicit activities in South Africa, but there are also some good ones. And if you have things like, such attacks, xenophobic attacks being taking place on other African countries, that is a problem to the South African economy. People are going to withdraw their funds from such a country that may be hostile to them. So they want to see people from outside being welcome to South Africa, and those in South Africa, the government engaging on capital incentive programs that will ensure that employment rises and people can start feeling the benefit. From what Professor Gianni Rosso earlier mentioned, he said the ANC's possibility of coming back in 2019 is there, but their popularity or majority is going to be very, very low. So are we likely to see, the likes of the DA or the EFF? What are your anticipations in 2019? Yes, I'm sure the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, will actually wish that he could become president one day, and to ensure that everything is within the power of the people and there is economic liberation and money towards the black people in South Africa. But he has to be more inclusive in his own kind of ideology towards governance in South Africa will look like if he's going to be the leader. And the Democratic Alliance also, they have
to come together. As the professor said, there has to be a government of national unity.
Yeah.
I believe that is the only way they are going to be able to kick the ANC out of power and make them go back and rethink and analyze what they've been doing wrong. Because if not for that, they are just going to keep on hitting a rock and not having it crack, because they seem to be entrenched in the system. A lot of things have been going on in South Africa which are not right. A lot of corruption allegations against this president, and we need to see whereby the opposition parties unite and say we have one voice. Right now, the deputy, even the best candidate that even the Congress of South African trade unions is actually supporting, unfortunately is actually still with the ANC. He's the best candidate, the deputy Ramaphosa, you understand? And right now, so there's really no strong opposition leader that will come up and say, you know what, I have a vision for the future of South Africa, corruption-free. And many of them are clamoring, but none of them have that populist support, that backing of the people. They're not, so to say, united to actually take on this wildcat of South Africa.
Professor, now let me come to you on what I asked Jermaine Sowolu with regards to the opposition in South African politics. Right now we have the DA, we have the EFF. They've been against the Zuma's government. Now, from your previous analysis, you mentioned that the majority of seats might not go to the ANC in 2019. Are we likely to see the DA or the EFF perhaps, taking the reins on 2019?
The DA is South Africa's official opposition at the moment, but unfortunately the DA is deeply divided internally between what I call the old liberals and the new Democrats.
Professor Jani Rasu, I'd like to thank you very much for the much you've said on the program. It's a pleasure to have shared your thoughts with us. Now, let me quickly wrap the show with you, Jermaine. Going forward, and with all that we see in South Africa today, what lessons can you say African countries like Nigeria and other countries on the continent can learn from South Africa's, challenges, especially in the area of politics?
Well, I believe it's not how well you start, it's how well you finish. We saw South Africa with President Nelson Mandela, taking the country to a new level. And freedom, there was a lot of joy, a lot of hope into the African continent. But what we see down the line right now is a leader in place who is actually doing the opposite of what President Nelson Mandela stands for. So African leaders need to understand that it's not how well you start, but how well you finish. Succession planning must be part of your leadership agenda when you go there. You must look for people who are capable, or in fact create a government which celebrates meritocracy, that celebrates people who have talents, who come and rise up and could actually take leadership positions, even though they're from other parties. You understand? You should create a democratic system whereby values are upheld, and you should not try and put your family to actually take over power. Don't try to extend your term. Ensure that democratic principles are there. And most especially the issue of corruption. Do not spend public funds on personal or on private or for private purposes, because it doesn't pay. That is looting. That is stealing. And you need to be transparent as a leader. President Jacob Zuma has actually done a lot of wrong things in his lifetime as the president. Remember 2003, what actually happened to him, that before he became president, there was a rape allegation that he had against his friend's daughter there. And what has happened so far with that, even just recently, we see now that the most trending book in South Africa is the biography by Quincy, whereby a lady that said that has died a decade after that incident. You understand, in a country whereby sexual violence as rape has actually been predominant in the country. 25% of women in one of the most populous provinces South Africa say they've been sexually assaulted, and 35% of men in South Africa saying, you know what, that they've actually forced a woman, or actually using threatening language to obtain sexual favors from ladies. So this kind of situation whereby you even have a president involved in that. We need integrity. We need men who are upright in character, in standards, who actually rise to position of influence and leadership, because they will be a reflection of the whole nation. African leaders must be able to stand by their word and must be people of integrity that can inspire the next generation when it comes to political and also moral leadership. And
I really like those issues raised there. Thanks a lot, Jermaine Sowolu, African Affairs Analyst, for all you've said on the program. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
From South Africa to Ghana, Nigeria to Kenya, Africa continues to witness made-to-movie moments, with the script retaining the usual storylines of massive corruption, gross mismanagement, and relentless abuse of office by the political class. While corruption remains an obstacle to sustainable development, advocacy, relentless action, and a strong civil society will go a long way in breaking the circle of crookedness and close the gap of inequality. And that is our package for today. But don't forget to join the conversation on Twitter at TVC News NG, and also follow me for updates around Africa at Esther TVC News. Until the next one, I am Esther Mokwariola, and always remember, change starts with you.